Today, we're going to take a little bit of an unscripted tour around the CraftaBrew studio, which is a multi-purpose studio and my brew room personally, as well as look at some items that are good buys for your brewing, as well as things I wouldn't necessarily recommend. This studio is actually my home studio. I've had it converted to a studio for about 5 years now and have done all kinds of YouTube content in this studio over those years. I've recorded in this side of the room and I've recorded in that side of the room. And this studio's changed a lot during my brewing, specifically to make videos to show how to brew, because brewing has changed a lot in the last 5 years. A lot of things that were best practices or trending are not anymore and have been replaced with other things. And so from time to time, I've had a lot of stuff in here or not very much stuff in here. And fortunately, you are getting kind of a unpolished look at everything that's in here right now. I've got posters on the wall. I've got memorabilia and awards. I still have one giant rack that holds all of my supplies and kind of spillover stuff. There's lighting everywhere, LED lighting, overhead lighting, mood lighting. And of course, on the CraftaBrew side, we've got kind of what looks like a full room studio, but it's kind of a small space back here. When I bring friends into the studio, they're often marveling at just how small this room actually is, because in the lens, it looks quite a bit bigger. This is all real wood back here. This was all constructed specifically for the CraftaBrew channel to kind of enclose the space and give it a nice workshop vibe. And even this workbench was made by me in preparation for launching this new style of content for CraftaBrew. It's kind of a cool workbench, actually. You wouldn't believe it, but it's completely hollow down here, and I keep towels and shipping materials, latex gloves, all that stuff underneath here, including I've got a nice towel rod that I can hang a towel on because my hands are constantly getting covered in star sand. Of course, I've got books and a microwave and probably dozens of bucket lids. I've got so much stuff in here. It gets really cluttered, and about once a month, I have to do a deep clean to get honey or spilled over wort or any manner of mess off the floors, because I am constantly making messes in here. Drop a comment below if you would like to see some outtake footage of me creating those messes. Usually that's cut out of the final video, but I'd be willing to save some footage if that's interesting to you. So let's take a look at gear that I think would be a good complement to whatever you've got now, especially if you're a new home brewer. Maybe you just got a holiday brewing kit from the Christmas tree or in your Hanukkah gifts. And so now you're trying to think of what else might you need in order to get started. Some of this stuff is next level. Some of this stuff is relatively affordable, but I get pretty good use out of all of it. First up, funnels. So you see here, I've got two big funnels. I also have a ton of little funnels because most of our CraftaBrew gear kits come with a little funnel. But two funnels that I like, this really, really big one I bought several years ago. I use it a lot because it's got this giant scoop that catches everything. And so I can be kind of chaotic when I'm pouring because there's not so much chance of spilling because I don't have that little small mouth funnel. This one is probably the handiest funnel. We have this one for sale here at CraftaBrew, and it has a filter inside, and that filter can be used to filter out grains or hop debris or particulate from fruit, kind of anything that is big enough to get caught by that filter. It's not a really fine filter like a nut milk bag would be, but it's a good enough filter to filter out big debris and keep that out, especially if you're pouring off a 1-gallon batch of beer into your fermenter. It can catch all that leftover hop debris so that's not going into your brew. Super handy. Next thing I want to talk about is scales. I have so many scales. I have 4 total scales. The ones I use the most frequently are this postal scale. I use it a lot when I'm pouring honey. because I can pour from a big bag or a bucket, and this postal scale will hold whatever I'm pouring it into. It's also got these little flaps on each side, so that can kind of contain whatever you're pouring into, so it doesn't slip and fall off one side of the scale, which is nice. Just kind of scoot that up near a wall, and you could weigh stuff on that. It's really, really useful and really, really accurate, which I love. The other scale I use a lot is a sub-gram scale. This one can go down to, I think it's a hundredths place in grams, which is really nice when you're weighing out very, very fine amounts of stuff. I also use this one. We have this one at CraftaBrew. This one is really handy. It is a sub-gram scale, but it works better at the gram level. And so weighing out acids, nutrients, stuff like that, this one is really handy, and it's small, so it's easy to store. I also have this one. This one is really old, and you can tell by how scratched up and messy it is that this one used to get a lot of use. A lot of times I'll use this one if I'm weighing out like 1 pound of honey or half a pound of grains, something like that, because it's quick and easy, and it's got this really nice low profile also. But this and the postal scale have replaced my scales largely in that department. Another thing I love is the refractometer. We have these for sale here at CraftaBrew. The refractometer is for measuring the Brix or gravity of your brew. The handy thing about this is it works great for pre-fermentation. You put 1 drop on there, look at it through the light, and you know what your gravity is. You can also use this post-fermentation, but there's a little bit of funky math that you have to do to account for the errors involved. And so usually what I'll do is use this at the beginning of fermentation and then use a hydrometer at the end of fermentation, and then just do the standard math. I really love this one because you don't have to worry about pulling a big sample. Literally 1 drop is all you need. I love my refractometer. I wish I would have bought this much earlier in my 16-year brewing career, because I use this thing constantly. You're probably looking at these and wondering what they are if you've never made beer. These are called Hupp's Spiders. This is a big one meant for 5-gallon batches. I usually use this one with my outdoor brewing. You can see that it's gotten pretty roughed up over the years. It's probably time to replace this one, but I've had this for 5 or 6 years now. And so I've gotten really good use out of it. I think it was like 30 bucks. And what's cool about this one is it hangs on the side of your brew kettle. So you throw your hops in there. When your boil is done, you just pull the hop spider out, and you don't have to worry about hops debris getting into your beer wort. This one works very similarly. The top screws off, and you can put hops or other adjuncts in there. And then once it's sealed up, you can just throw it inside the brew kettle. Good to go. This works better for small batches than this one, because this one in a smaller kettle will just kind of rest on the bottom. Not ideal, but this one just kind of bobs around in there while it's boiling. And then I usually keep a string on it so I can pull it back out when I'm done. One cool thing you can do with a hop spider, if you're doing like a mead that's all fruit and honey, you've got a lot of pulp in there, you can push the hops spider down into it and then put your racking cane inside the hop spider. The liquid will fill the spider, and so you can rack without having pulp clogging up your racking system. That is handy. Big pro tip there. And brew bags. I keep a ton of muslin brew bags on hand. They're great for bagging up spices, grains, stuff that's kind of big and bulky, because it lets the liquid flow through the brew bag, but then you can pull the brew bag out and you don't have all those solids staying in your brew. Now, these are not a fine filter, and so you might someday want to also acquire a big reusable brew bag like this one. This one goes down inside of a kettle, and then you can actually hook a winch up to it and use a pulley system to raise it up out of your brew. This one is really, really fine mesh, and so it's good for adjuncts. It's good for brew in a bag brewing, things like that. And then, of course, there are nut milk bags. You can find those online pretty readily, and they also are reusable. They are a super fine mesh, and so even kind of a goopy liquid can saturate them enough that you don't get the liquid draining out. So nut milk bags, I will use them sometimes for infusing spices, but I don't necessarily use them in a lot of my brewing, but they do have their place in your brew room. Lastly, a vacuum sealer. This is a very, very cheap vacuum sealer, but I've kind of found that all you need is a really cheap vacuum sealer. So you just put your bag of ingredients in there, line it up with the vacuum reservoir and the heating element, snap it closed, and seal up your stuff. And this is good for storing extra grains, extra hops, other ingredients like that that maybe you want to throw in the freezer, so you don't have as much oxygen in there penetrating your ingredients, and it keeps them for a little bit longer than if you were to just throw them in like a zipper baggie and toss them in the freezer. Weirdly, I'm put off buying one of these for years. I think I got this like a year and a half ago, and now I use it constantly. And so this is really, really nice. Another useful thing for this is sealing up your brews in the bottle, because when you're shipping, every now and then the shipping companies do not handle your packages with care. So if a bottle gets crushed or cracked or a lid gets knocked off or something, all of your brew is contained in that vacuum sealed bag, so it's not spilling out over the rest of the contents in your package. I use this so much. When it comes to things I wouldn't recommend, the first on the list is a wine pump. I had the Buon Vino Mini, and it works okay, but it requires a lot of care, a lot of maintenance. The filter pads are kind of expensive, and I probably used it maybe 12-15 times over the few years I had it, and then one day it just broke and started spraying mead all over my kitchen, and so it's gone. It went into the trash. I don't have one here to show you because I was so frustrated with this expensive piece of equipment that I bought that it was cathartic to chuck it out. So there is a place for filtering, I think, in home winemaking. If you're really next level and if you're entering competitions where absolute clarity is super important, I would recommend getting one, but know the caveats. They are kind of a pain to use. Next up, pH strips. Unless you're making kombucha, you do not need to worry about pH. If you get into really advanced level beer brewing, you might be wanting to check pH, but pH strips are not the way to do it. You're going to want to get a digital pH meter and make sure that it is calibrated and well maintained so that it gives you accurate readings. pH strips don't give you an accurate reading, they give you an idea of the pH. And so that's why they're useful for kombucha, because you're not trying to be exact, you're just trying to get the pH to an appropriate level for fermentation. But for mead, wine, cider, these relatively useless. The last thing on the list is my stir plate. I've had this for many years, and I probably used it less than 10 times in all those years. The idea is that you use it to mix up a yeast starter. It adds oxygen to the starter. It moves your yeast past the lag phase. So when you put your yeast in your brew, it's already ready to begin fermentation. You're building up a really high cell count. But with modern brewing and wine yeasts, that is almost entirely unnecessary. This is a fancy, fun toy. It is absolutely fun to have, not really useful on the homebrewing scale, unless you're just really looking for a place where you can add more gear to your process. I like having it. It's fun to watch it spin up the liquid and make a little tornado inside. I'm from Oklahoma. I've been around tornadoes, but for homebrewing, especially if you're doing like a 1-gallon batch, don't bother. I'm sure I've left out some really valuable or totally useless gear from this video, but drop a comment and let us know if you think I missed something really critical to let new homebrewers know about. There are so many homebrewing products out there. And here at CraftaBrew, we really try to focus on the essentials, the things you need to make great beer, mead, wine, or cider at home. And so if you go on our website and poke around, generally what you're going to see are things that you will find use in. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming content from us here at CraftaBrew. I'm BC here for CraftaBrew, now with 16 years of homebrewing under my belt. Kind of crazy how time flies. Until next time, I hope you've got good things brewing.